Hello and welcome to livealittlehigher.com. This week we read Parasha Vayishlach, and there's a very disturbing episode that happens in this parasha in which Jacob comes to the land of Shechem with his family, and his daughter Dinah goes out to look at the place, goes out to look at the girls, and suddenly she's captured by the prince of Shechem, and he rapes her. He kidnaps her and he rapes her. And then Shimon and Levi, the brothers, are very upset. They're beyond themselves, and they come to rescue the sister, and they tell them, the king of Hamor, he comes and he tells them, what is this? Why don't we exchange wives? You marry with our girls, we marry with your girls, and we're all gonna become a very happy family. So they decide that they are gonna go with his plan, and they tell him that it's okay, they're gonna do it. But first they all have to circumcise. All the male people, all the male from Shechem have to circumcise, and after they circumcise and they convert to Judaism, then they can marry Jacob's daughters. So what happens is that on the third day, which is the worst day after any surgery, Shimon and Levi come and they kill every male from Shechem. And Yaakov was very disturbed by this, by all this violence. But at the end of the day, the brothers were really defending the sister. This is how you cannot do this to a girl, to anybody. And they were stepping up to the plate. So here Rabbi Itzhak Ginsburg gives us a very interesting outlook on what happened from a holy perspective. And it says that Dinah, Leah's daughter, who she bore to Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land, and Shechem, son of Hamor the Shivite, the prince of the land, saw her, and he took her and lay with her and assaulted her. So this tragic episode concerning Dinah, it can be approached from two different angles. Either it can be viewed from a human perspective as a horror story, something horrendous that happened, and also we can view it from God's omnipresence and his perspective. Because in life there's always three truths. There's your truth, there's my truth, and there's the truth, Hashem's truth. And there's different ways to look at things. And yes, we live a physical existence. We live in a physical body, and we experience physical problems. But in reality, there's a spiritual perspective to it too, that is also connected to our physical existence. And there's another side to the story. So from our earthly perspective, rape is obviously the cruelest and most unimaginable of sins, of crimes, and it demands that the victim be rescued and be taken care of and brought back to life, we can say it, and that the person that perpetrates such a horrible act be punished. So Dinah's brothers, as I said before, Shimon and Levi, they took this in their hands, and they adopted the physical human approach. Although the father, Yaakov, was not very happy with this approach, but in reality they were doing what it had to be done. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe emphasized that from an educational perspective, there are some things that are so sanctified that the desecration touches the very essence of the soul. So for a woman is such a pure being. Woman is like a mezuzah, it's like a Torah scroll. That's why we cover and we dress in its nude way, because we are what brings the holiness to the home. A woman is a very holy person, because she's the one that carries life inside of her. So to desecrate a woman really touches the essence of her soul. It's very deep. So, but what happens once the episode was over? So what happened afterwards? Shechem and Hamor wanted to convert to Judaism. They wanted to intermarry with the Jewish girls and give them their girls to the Jewish boys. But at the end, this is not what happened. Dinah eventually became pregnant, and she had a daughter, Asnat, who eventually was taken to Egypt, and she was adopted by Potiphar, and later on we will see that this is going to be Joseph's wife. So from the beginning, Hashem was paving the way to give Joseph a Jewish wife. And we see that Shimon, the brother, he could not, at that moment, the pain he felt for his sister was so big that he married her, and he protected her all her life. In those days, the Torah was still not given, so the laws of not marrying a sister were not yet given to humanity, so it was permitted at that time. So the way to truly heal a wounded soul is to transcend the mundane and to rise to a higher perspective. The only way in which we can heal our pain, our physical pain from physical life experiences, is when we can get out of the physical and transcend it and look at it from a higher perspective and understand that there's a purpose in everything that happens to us. As painful as it is, as painful, as horrible as it can be, there is a divine purpose which is hidden in such an act. And we see from here that the Arizal reveals that although no one at the time was aware of it, somewhere deep down in Shechem's mean, contemptible soul hid a holy spark that needed to be released. So Shechem, as wicked as he was, the act he did, there was a holy spark in him that had to be released. And the only person that could bring him to release that holy spark was actually Dinah. And that's why it says in the Torah, his soul clung to Dinah. His soul, not him, the soul. Because the good element of Shechem's soul escaped and literally clung to Dinah. So whatever good he had was released in that act. So moreover, with the spiritual insight, the Arizal revealed Dinah's reincarnations throughout their generations. Amongst other, Dinah was reincarnated as Abigail. Abigail was one of King David's wives, who was first the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. And after he died, King David married her. And later she was reincarnated once again into Rufina, who was Tzinius Rufus' wife, who was one of the governors of Jerusalem in the times of the Second Temple. He was a very, very wicked man. And she also converted to Judaism and ended up marrying Rabbi Akiva. And also, we see here that the underlying theme in all Dinah's incarnations suggests that her task, her purpose in the world, that soul came to this world to pass from someone evil to someone good. That was her task. So from Shechem ben Hamor to her brother Shimon, from Nabal to King David, and from Rufus to Rabbi Akiva. And each transfer further clarifies and elevates the sparks that were captured and concealed in the depths of the impure shells. So there's more to the world than we can see. There's more to life than we can grasp. Although we only see what we see and feel what we feel, in reality, it's much bigger than that. And one day, God willing, when Mashiach comes, all this knowledge will be revealed to us and we will be able to understand why these things happen. But the Arizal is very, very strong in saying that although we can sometimes retroactively understand why things happen, in hindsight, we can see back and we can say, okay, I understand why this had to happen. In reality, we cannot live our lives thinking like this, because that would give a leeway for people to do evil in the world and justify it. And in reality, that's not the case. We should avoid evil at all costs. We should try never to harm anybody in our lives. And we're nobody to know what another person deserves. We're not here prophets. We don't know what people deserve. And we should always try to do kindness and be good people. So here, Rabbi Ginsburg teaches us that there's 3 types of refining. One type of God's service is the service of clarification, by which holy sparks that are previously intermingled in mundane or impure realms are rescued from their fate to return to holiness. So in reality, in Kabbalah, it explains that once the world created, Hashem created a world that was created with Gevura, and it could not contain itself, so it was destroyed. And all these sparks of this world were thrown around the world. They come from the world of Tohu, of chaos. And what our job is in this world is to elevate these sparks, to bring them and elevate them to their source. So the first method is achieved completely a priori when an individual consciously deals with the mundane matters with the intention of choosing to do good, thus refining reality through his actions. So this is the service of the righteous. So for example, every time he eats, a person will take this food, and the intention of eating the food is returning the sparks of holiness of this fruit to their essence, to where they have to come. So when a Jew does a bracha on a food or on a drink, what he's doing is that he's releasing the sparks of that food, and the food becomes holy. There's a term that is called it's not good and it's not bad. It's not either one. So it depends on what you do with the thing that's gonna make it good or it's gonna make it evil. So for example, with food, if food is not good or bad, but if you don't do a bracha and you don't eat it properly, then it's not good. Okay, so this is one of the methods of clarification. Then the second method of clarification happens when I find myself in an unpremeditated situation. For example, you're stuck in an airport for 8 hours, the plane's not leaving, and you're there, and you think you're stuck there, but in reality, you're not stuck there. Hashem puts you in that place for a reason. There's a purpose there. I just heard a story of an El Al plane that left and was not able to reach Israel in time before Shabbat, and they had to land in Greece. And all these people that were in this plane were stuck in Greece for Shabbat. But in reality, they were not stuck in Greece. They had to come to Greece to spend Shabbat because they had to release holy sparks from that place. So they ended up in a hotel with a Chabad rabbi and the Chabad Rebbetzin, and they made a beautiful Shabbaton for all of them. And they were happy, and they were singing, and they were making the best of it. And that was the whole purpose of not getting to Israel on time for Shabbat. There was a purpose for them to be in Greece. So this is how the Baal Shem Tov interprets this verse, and you shall go to the place Havaya your God will choose. So when we know that everywhere we are, we're meant to be there, there's a purpose for us there's something we have to do in this place, then we will feel much better. We won't say, oh, I'm stuck here, why did this happen to me? No, you know you have a mission. There's a purpose for you to be in such a place. So this one should realize that one travels from place to place are not on one's initiative. Really, we don't choose where we are. We're put where we have to be. And because one is being led from above, the intention being to have his name dwell there, to disseminate holiness in that location. When I teach girls, I say, like, if you're stuck in traffic, don't ruin the moment. Like, it's a perfect moment to call your mom. It's a perfect moment to listen to a shiur. It's a perfect moment to meditate on something and learn something new. Take the opportunity and elevate it. Don't think you're stuck anywhere in life. And the third method is, as we have seen with Dina, when an individual unwittingly falls into an adverse situation. Like, you don't choose to fall into such. She didn't choose to be raped. God forbid, a person's walking down the street. He doesn't choose to be mugged. We don't choose these things. It's something that we have no control over. So when the process cannot be achieved by any other means, God's intention to refine the world still remains true even under such conditions. So even as horrible as it looks, as horrendous, that whatever happens, it comes from God. And we have to understand it comes from God, and it's good. Even if we don't understand it, even if it's painful, even if we think our whole life was ruined, it comes for good, it has a purpose, and it's good. So in Dina's case, she was assaulted totally against her will, but there can also be situations in which an individual chooses to do bad. So in this case, when a person chooses to go and steal or chooses to go and do the other thing, there is responsibility, there's accountability. Like, you are accountable for your actions. But nevertheless, whatever happened, it was meant to be. Hashem chose you to do it because you were susceptible to fall into that. Your Yetzer Hara grabs you and you end up doing what you shouldn't be doing. But at the end of the day, the action, what had to happen through you or through someone else. So this is a very difficult concept to understand. It happened with the brothers of Joseph when they sold him to the caravan. And he understood this. When he confronts them, he says, I'm not angry at you because I understand that Hashem had a purpose. I had to be in Egypt. I had to be sold. I had to be a slave. I had to be in jail. I had to live everything I had to live to be able to become the viceroy of Egypt and save the world from famine. So there was a purpose for it. But that the brothers erred, they were accountable for that. So we see here that in our generation, the Lubavitcher Rebbe stated that the service of clarification has ended, which in our context means that the first level of consciously clarifying reality achieved by the righteous has ended. Like, we still do it, but it's already done. It's something that has been completed. The sparks, the holiness, the sparks in the world have been elevated. So our current task is to involve ourselves more with the service of unifications. What we have to do in this world now is unify everything to God. Make everything relevant. Reveal Hashem in the world. When we eat kosher and we're doing a bracha, we're bringing God to the world. We're not only elevating the food, but we're making a dwelling place for Hashem in this world. And we're unifying the physical with the spiritual. So that's why it says in the Torah, know him in all your ways. But in general, our consciousness should be directed towards a different goal altogether, the goal of bringing the final redemption. So our generation, our job, our task, all of us, at this moment in time, is to do things to bring Mashiach. That's our job, to do everything in our power to be able to bring the ultimate redemption. And he says we no longer need to travel to the ends of the world to recite a blessing like in olden days. A Jew would be in Sri Lanka and he had to be there to recite a blessing to be able to elevate the holy sparks that were contained in that place. We don't need to do that anymore. It's done. But we have to understand that we are here because we have to achieve not falling into sin. This is another thing we have to learn, not to fall into sin, and not yet, which has not ended yet. We still are falling into sin. We're still falling. So the Rabbi Ginsburg here gives us something very interesting, and it's called trauma therapy. And how can we incorporate these teachings into trauma therapy? And the knowledge that even the most terrible, terrible fall has a purpose is a first aid. This is like resuscitation. When a person goes into shock because something happened to them, just to think, you know what, as horrible as this is, there's a purpose for it. That's already the beginning of the healing. And knowing that whatever happens is divinely ordained elucidates that event. It really gives us some comfort because it's not meaningless. Sometimes you hear news, like for example, you hear there's a shooting somewhere and they killed 10 people, and it feels so meaningless. It feels like, why does this have to happen? Like all these people have to pass away. It's what's the purpose? There's no meaning to it. But in reality, we don't see what the meaning really is, and there's a purpose for it. So the healing power to penetrate deep enough into our souls and not just serve as a topical painkiller, we need to understand Shechem's father. And his name was Hamor. And Hamor in Hebrew means donkey. And the donkey is what's going to bring Mashiach. So the Torah's inner dimension reveals that this donkey has much more profound significance than is apparent at first glance. And at the beginning of this parasha, it says that Yaakov said, I have oxen and I have donkeys. He said to his brother Esau when they meet, he says, I have oxen and I have donkeys. And the sages teach us that Jacob's oxen refer to Mashiach ben Yosef. There's going to be two Mashiachs. One is Mashiach ben Yosef and the other one is Mashiach ben David. So Mashiach ben Yosef is going to come before Mashiach ben David comes. He's going to pave the way for Mashiach ben David to come. And there's going to be a holy war. We don't understand what this holy war is. Maybe it's with cyber war, maybe it's a war with words or whatever it is. But at the end, he's going to die in this war. But at the end, this is going to pave the way for the ultimate Redeemer, which is Mashiach ben David, to come. So we see here something very interesting. And it says that, well, the donkey refers to the Mashiach sons of David. David is going to come, the son of David is going to come. He's going to be a pauper riding a donkey. That's what the prophecy says. Jacob's cattle were holy oxen, and his donkeys too were holy donkeys. But by contrast, there are also are oxen and donkeys of impure husks. So there's holy and unholy. So the Hasidut explains that an ox represents heat, a passion. It has an explosive power. So if it's an unholy ox, it's gonna be an angry ox. It's gonna be anger. It's gonna be destruction. But if it's a holy ox, then that power is gonna be channeled for passion for Torah, passion for learning, passion. It's hot, it's passionate. And then we see here that the donkey, which is an unholy donkey, expresses coldness. If we learn, I've learned with Rabbi Ginsburg that the Talmud states that a donkey is always cold. He's never warm. Even in the summer, even if it's 100 degrees, the donkey is cold, even at the height of summer. So like a stubborn donkey that cannot be shaken from its routine way of life, the donkey-like character of the impure husk manifests apathy and coldness. So it's the reverse from the ox. It's apathy and indifference. And that there's nothing worse than indifference, when people don't care. They just don't care what's going on. If someone is being mistreated and they're indifferent, they don't look, they don't care. So here we see that the holy indifference is a good indifference, because the holy donkey reflects a positive stoicism that allows us to carry everything that God confers upon us as with equanimity and awe of God. And like a disciplined donkey that carries its yoke without complaint. So what it's telling us here in context is that a positive indifference is healthy, because in a case where there has been trauma, for example, where someone has suffered something horrendous, you need a little bit of that coldness inside to be able to heal. If you're too much in the pain, you're not going to be able to get over it. You have to separate yourself from it. And he says here that that happens when we submit to God's will without being overwhelmed by the raving emotions that threaten to engulf me. So when we are able to connect to Hashem, we're able to connect to His purpose, that there's a purpose behind all that has happened, by looking at everything from a cool perspective, with coldness, rational perspective, not an emotional perspective, but a rational and intellectual way of looking at things. There happens to be like a certain type of detachment from the action. You're able to detach yourself and be able to hover above it and look at it from a different angle. So he says here that a good therapist that someone would need to be able to overcome these feelings in which they're trapped and they're traumatized and they have a post-traumatic stress disorder, the person would need a holy therapist that would be able to have that coldness. It's not that he doesn't feel for the person, but he separates himself from the feelings in order to allow the person to be able to recuperate. Because if the therapist also is empathetic to the point that he can't breathe because of the pain that the other person is feeling, then this person cannot help him. To be able to help a person, you have to be calm and cool, and you have to be able to to be able to allow that person to be able to get out of it. And this is true compassion. So Messiah ben David is referred to as a pauper riding a donkey. It is he who will complete this rectification, bringing healing and comfort to every tortured soul and bequeathing them with a true and comforting sense that all their downfalls were ultimately for the very best. There was a purpose, there's a plan, there's something that has to come out of it, and that's what should give us the strength to continue. So I wish you a beautiful week, and with revealed and good things, and may we live a little higher. Thank you.